the king of the temple's tomb. Don't let him rise and make a fool of you. Let your soul feel whole and refuse to let him in. Let your light shine bright and learn to see again.
This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. This is the Stick Blade Podcast with your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. It's your place for all things Detroit Red Wings, all things Chicago Blackhawks, as well as news around the NHL. On tonight's show, we're going to be talking about a couple pieces for the Red Wings and one piece for Chicago Blackhawks. For the Red Wings, we're going to be talking about the Jeff Petry trade. The Wings acquired him in exchange for Gustav Lindstrom and a conditional fourth-round draft pick. And then the rest of the show, we're going to be talking about players that we're really looking forward to seeing this year, upcoming season for the Wings and the Hawks, respectively. Each of us is going to pick a player from the team that we really follow, really follow. And then a player from the other team that we're kind of watching from the sideline saying, you know what, that guy, I want to see what he does. I'm your host for tonight, Jordan Linscott. I'm joined by my co-hosts, David Barnhouse and Tim Stompanato. Everybody, welcome to the show. Boys, it's almost preseason time. Almost.
I'm so ready.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's really crazy. They've had some training type videos. I mean, I think I was talking to Jordan before the show with Sandine Pellikka's amazing blue line skating, just gliding across Cale McCarr moves. I love the I don't know if Jordan or you guys saw it, but the camaraderie between Detroit sports teams we're seeing a rise in lately. Mo Seider and Lucas Raymond visited the Lions training camp, and it was hilarious and amazing. I didn't realize that the St. Brown brothers, so Amon-Ra St. Brown and I can't remember the one that plays for the Bears first
Acrimonious,
are fluent in German. Their mom's from Germany, so
that's awesome.
Amon-Ra St. Brown walked up to Mo Seider and just started talking to him in German, and I'm just like, what?
That's the stuff you love to see. That's fantastic.
But it's just great. I love the Detroit sports feeling. It's crazy. I love it.
It's Bedard hype over here. We're we can say whatever we want. We're just waiting for Bedard to hit the ice.
Realistically, but Connor Bedard is the selling point this year.
It.
Yep.
We can go ahead and just get into this sucker. The first thing that we've got to talk about, the Red Wings have traded Gustav Lindstrom in exchange for Jeff Petry and Gustav Lindstrom and a fourth-round draft pick in exchange for Jeff Petry. Jeff Petry is going to only be getting paid $2.4 million by the Detroit Red Wings for a salary cap. The other half is already covered for him. So it's basically this year and next year he's under contract for, and then he hits UFA status. Detroit basically paid a true seventh defenseman after this trade, and a conditional fourth-round pick. I think it's the worst of Montreal's 2/4 this year. So the Wings basically traded a seventh defenseman for a guy who should be playing your bottom four for the next 2 years, making about 2.4. Not bad for a team that's trying to make the rookies in their pipeline work for a spot this year. David, what's your initial thought?
So I love it. I mean, we're getting a Michigan native, Jeff Petry, born and raised Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we only gave up Lindstrom, who has really shown to be just a seventh defenseman. I don't think he's ever going to be a top four defenseman for us. But we're getting Jeff Petry, who used to be a top four defenseman. He's older now, but he can still play a really good game. We're only paying him $2.4 million a year because, like you said, Montreal's eating 50% of his salary. And we only gave up, in terms of draft picks, a fourth-round pick in 2025, and it's a conditional one, so it could change. I love it. Like you said, it's making guys work harder for the spot, like guys like Edvinsson, Willie Wallander, and others. I think it's great. I love that he chose his dad's number. His dad used to play for the Detroit Tigers, so he picked number 46. It's great to bring another Michigan native home.
Yeah, you've had a sort of a theme of that this offseason, which is rad. I guess my big question is now, I like the trade. I like that you did not give up. Realistically, you're not hurting with what you gave up at all. My one question though is, while your depth is awesome, like if there's injuries or anything like that, you've got a really good reserve tank. But what does your defense look like now? Because like your top pairing, I think, is going to be Sider and Wallman, but then everyone else is sort of I don't know. They're all veterans that you don't want to sit.
Mm-hmm. That's where the old Blashill blender comes in.
I'm so fascinated.
Even though we don't have Blashill anymore, is that we can move defensemen around depending on if they're having a hot streak, if they're having a cold streak. We actually have depth now. I think I said before the show, I think this is our best defensive lineup since 2015, before we started missing the playoffs. Like, this is a good pairing of veterans, of mid-aged guys who still have a lot left in the tank. And then our young guys like Wallman, like Sider, who are really pushing to really be that consensus number one pair. It's really exciting. Like, looking at past lineups the last couple of years, it's like, oh, we just got to plug and play some guys in because we don't have anything. And now it's like, who's going to fight for the spot? Like,
well, and
these are hot commodities now.
I think that's my question is, what you've got left after Wallman and Sider, you've got Hall, Petry, Gustafsson. Ghost to Spear. That's it. I've been saying that wrong. So Ghost to Spear, Alimata, and Ben Sherratt. Who one of those has to sit? Who are you sitting?
That
great. That's a tough question.
I mean, it's
Jordan,
a great problem to have, but like
it is.
I think it's really going to be matchup dependent who they sit. I think it's going to be one of those things where if they know they need bigger physical guys, they're going to be playing Ben Sherratt on the bottom pair. If they don't need a big shutdown guy like him, they're probably going to sit him and they're going to play somebody like Olimata, a guy who's got a little bit more quickness and better two-way game. That's what I really see the Wings doing.
Yeah, it's just about pairing who we're going up against and who's going to thrive under that condition. It's really good to see.
Sick.
This was a deal I didn't see coming, because I thought we were done after we, finally got to Brink. And I was like, all right, so this is our team for the year. Here we go. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I'm like, whoa, Jeff Petry, now a Detroit Red Wing.
And like the other thing is, like, David, you and we haven't really been in this situation where the Wings have actually 7 NHL caliber defensemen to pick from. That's something that we haven't seen, I don't really think, since 2016. It's something that we haven't seen in about 7 to 8 years. If you want to count the 2015 season where they made the playoffs, I still think that there were some players on that group who didn't deserve to be in the playoffs, but I digress. This is a problem that we haven't had in Detroit with the Red Wings for almost 8 years now, where you actually have 7 NHL caliber defensemen and you have to pick one who's not here. This is an awesome problem, even if they're not top 4 guys. You have guys
they're
who
all sturdy, stable defensemen.
It's a problem throughout our entire lineup. Like, Yzerman has completely revamped the offense in the last 2 years as well.
Oh my God, yeah.
Where we have guys where we're like, where is this guy gonna go? Like Rasmussen, Sprong, all these guys who are like capable players. Same with the defense, capable players. It's a fun predicament to have.
You're gonna have legitimate NHL quality players sitting each night. Your 13th forward, your 13th and 14th forwards or whatever aren't gonna be emergency AHL guys anymore. They're gonna be people that probably deserve to be playing at least bottom 6 minutes. So that's gonna be fascinating to see that blender.
Which is going to give younger guys, defensive players and offensive players, more time to develop and grow as first line or second line in Griffins.
It is kind of a shame. Like, you had the last 4 years of, if there was a rookie, if there was a younger guy, like, awesome, now's your time. If there are open spots everywhere, take it, earn it. And like, I think we sort of saw who did that. And I think anyone that was part of that era that didn't, I would be worried if I was them.
Yeah, and like obviously Michael Rasmussen was kind of one of those players, a guy who he got picked up and drafted by the Red Wings immediately following, missing the playoffs. He's a guy who I really think I think he's stepped up and said, you know what, I don't want to be a career bottom 4 guy or bottom 6 guy. I mean, I want to be a true second liner if I can on any NHL club. And he's done that because he's got the chance to do it.
He's the perfect example of each year he's someone that took a step forward, honed a different area of his game, whether it was, hey, he got a little quicker. Hey, he's playing the body a lot more. Hey, he's actually like working on his hands and that scoring touch a little bit. You can see that every year, and it's been remarkable to see him take that. And luckily, he took it before it timed out.
Before the roster filled up.
If he can stay healthy, I could definitely see a first line pairing of him, Larkin, and DeBrincat.
I agree. I mean, that's my projection if he does. So, like, yeah.
I think it's gonna be really interesting. We're gonna be sitting here watching the Wings play this year, and we're gonna be betting on some of these younger guys to really step up and continue to develop. It's like I said, it's a thing that we haven't had in Detroit for nearly 8 years now.
Well, I do love betting on the young guys, and I love betting on the team in general, Jordan.
How else can we bet, Jordan?
Speaking of betting, that's going to actually bring us to tonight's sponsor, or one of tonight's sponsors for the show, and that is DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. If you bet just $5, you can score $100 in bonus bets. Wow. Sorry, $150 in bonus bets instantly. Again, that's code THPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER in Massachusetts. Call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resorts, in West Virginia, gambling problem, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. All games are regulated by the West Virginia Lottery. Please play responsibly. In partnership with Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in Connecticut, help's available for problem gambling at 888-789-7777, or you can visit ccpg.org. You have to be 21 in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details to specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Just keep that in mind. One boost eligible per game. Opt-in is required. Your max bet's $50. 10 plus legal requirement for 100% boost. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/baseball terms. So that's going to take us into what I really want to talk about also on this show. And guys that we look at this year and we're going to say, okay, I'm banking on this guy to take a step forward. Yep. They're one of the players I really want to see take a step forward in the NHL. We talked about the Red Wings already to start the show. Tim, who is it on the Blackhawks who you're really excited about seeing this year, what they do with the flow?
Well, and it's important to note that before the podcast, we discussed this, and we wanted this to be, we have plenty of time to talk about the rookies we're excited about, the prospects, but we wanted to focus a little bit with this on players that have been around a little bit, whether they've been on the team, whether they're new additions to the team, somebody that's not a rookie, a pro that's been around. In that vein, the player that I am most excited on the Blackhawks to watch this year, it's Taylor Hall. Like, David, we were talking a little bit before the show started, like, what a fascinating player Taylor Hall is. First overall pick. He's a former Hart Trophy winner. But he's also been traded, like, one-for-one trades that were bad trades, but they still happened. He's been a journeyman around the league. He's played in a secondary supplemental role in Boston. This guy's been an all-star. He's seen the highs. He's seen the lows. And now he's back here, or not back here. Now he's here for the first time in Chicago, back in a top 6 role. But also as a mentor. Like, he's no longer this hotshot young all-star. He's the seasoned and grizzled vet. That's a really cool dynamic to see him bring to this team.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor Hall is the guy I picked as my player to watch for the Hawks this year for the same exact reason. Like, he's a number 1 overall pick. He's a Hart Trophy winner. He's a great player, and he's become this journeyman veteran who's just bounced from team to team. And there's always like the Taylor Hall magic where like the team that signs him or the team that trades him gets
whatever, any team that he's on, it exponentially raises the odds of them getting the first overall pick, which is not really a gift but a curse. I mean, in a lot of ways, gift for the team, curse for Taylor Hall.
Yeah. But it's just crazy to think he went from being this projected superstar. I mean, he was a superstar.
Not even projected. He was a superstar.
He was a superstar. To now a journeyman mentor. Like, didn't see that coming for him.
That's the part that I'm excited about. Like, yes, we're excited for what he brings skill-wise to the table, but a lot of why he was brought to Chicago is to mentor, and not just Bedard, but all the rookies. He's been in so many different locker rooms. He's seen what's worked. He's seen what doesn't. It's his, again, I love a chance to talk about intangibles when the person also brings tangibles. And that's Taylor Hall. He's going to be able to match Bedard playmaking wise and skill wise. It'll be someone that Bedard can actually grow with and hone his skills on the ice. But this is a guy that survived Edmonton media.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy that has been in all sorts of situations, and who better to have in this blossoming locker room creating a new culture than a guy like Taylor Hall?
Tim, do you think Taylor Hall is a piece they want to keep the whole season and mentor?
Yes.
Or do you think he's a guy that they're going to be like, here's the trade deadline, he's doing good, let's try and ship him out for more?
I think they really like the fact that it's a 2-year deal. I think that if we do see the Hawks trade Taylor Hall, it'll be next trade deadline. I think we want him at the very least all this year.
Okay.
I mean, we need the cap space. It's not necessarily like we brought him in to flip him like the Max Domi and Anthony Ciu trade acquisitions last year. But I think what Taylor Hall brings, they knew what they needed to do by closing the door on the Kane and Taze era, but they still very much need guys like Taylor Hall, Corey Perry, we got Nick Foligno, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not the the brothers in this league. But they brought them in for the long haul to grow that culture. And Taylor Hall, I feel like, is the peak of what they're looking for both on and off ice.
Okay.
At least for this year. Like I said, if they trade him, I think it's going to be next deadline when they only have the 1 year that's left and they can retain salary and whatnot and not be hurt by it.
Okay.
I feel like for me, and I kind of touched on this in an earlier episode with you guys, but I really think Lucas Reichel is the player who I'm most excited to watch for the Hawks. He's really like the first big piece of their rebuilding core, I would say, who has had a chance to touch the NHL and had actual meaningful NHL reps and not just here's a couple games and then you're going back down. He was the first player who the Hawks kind of did like the 1 or 2 game stints with, sent him down to go back to the AHL, go a bit more, and then called back up. And they've been doing that. He's finally got true NHL time under his belt, and now he's really going to get more of a chance to shine. And I said this already as a bold prediction a couple weeks ago, but I think they're going to finally give him a chance to try and play center at the NHL level. And I think that's going to be exciting to watch. It's going to determine, hey, in terms of rebuild assets and where most cup contenders are, how close are you to really having that 1-2 punch at center like all of the major cup contenders are? That's going to be a big question that I think gets answered this year with him.
It's going to be really interesting because I think you're right. I don't necessarily know if they envision him at center, but in a year like this, they've got no reason not to try him at center, at least on, in spurts and smaller intervals. Because I know that they did an Anthony Ciu at center a bit last year, and they had some good chemistry. It might even be the kind of thing where they have Reichel in the center position, but maybe having somebody else take face-offs or something to ease him into that role. He's an interesting one because on paper, he's still very much a rookie, but he's been getting that little bit incremental NHL experience. He is more seasoned at this point than a lot of the guys coming in. And Jordan, to your point with Lucas Reichel, with Frank Nazer, with Oliver Moore. We've got a couple of guys coming up that might fill that 2C position, but Reichel is logically the first person to give that a crack at, because he's been nothing but center in the AHL. I know he was drafted as a winger and then switched to center in Germany and stuff. And then when he came over, for Rockford, he's been exclusively a center. It's only at the NHL level because he hasn't had quite that muscle, that size yet. But I don't know. He's been bulking up each year. I love what he's got. He's developed that low center of gravity, a little bit more of that hard to knock off ability. I'd love to see him try at center.
It's kind of I call it the Michael Rasmussen effect, because you actually brought it up earlier on the show. It's a guy who every single year, who you've been watching, he continues to take a step forward and just works on something. And I really think this year they're going to actually say, okay, we're still not expecting to go anywhere. So if we can give you reps at center and really let you get a chance to try to play that position and see if you can handle it. Again, that's a big question mark that Chicago's got to figure out, because Bedard, by all intents and purposes, looks like he's going to be a number one center, barring something crazy happening. So Reichel could be the other center who they need, but they don't know yet. And the guys in their pipeline are still a ways off from being there.
And I guess just to wrap up that thought process, he also doesn't have to be.
Yeah, he doesn't
in the sense that we have Nazer and Moore coming up the pipeline that could easily be either a wing or a center. That takes some of the pressure off of Reichel, that it's like, hey, we're going to try out at center. We're going to give you some reps. We're going to alternate. We don't need you to be this person, but we want to give you that shot. That could be exactly what he needs.
It's a show us what you got type of thing. Like, hey, show us what you got.
Pressure's not on. Just kind of want to see if you can thrive in it.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, it's not the end of the whole.
Oh my God, he's a
Hawks.
Killer left wing. Like he could end up being a top line left wing, or like he's definitely top six. But I think if he's wing, he could very much be that first line left wing or second line center, or in a wonderful scenario, second line wing, because we've got a stacked top six for some reason.
Yep.
No, he's really the player I'm excited to watch for the Hawks this year.
Excellent.
Speaking of former Hawks players, because we're talking about the Hawks, I'm going to talk about the Wings player to watch for me. And he is a former Hawk, Alex DeBrincat. So Yzerman made the big move this summer by trading for and signing Alex DeBrincat. And he's a player I'm really excited to see, because he had that little chip on his shoulder from media saying, he's nothing without Patrick Kane, helping him out. And he had and I quote, down year in Ottawa last season, because he didn't score 40 goals, but he, with his points, he would have finished second on the Wings with points. But now you're putting him with Dylan Larkin, who, is able to really feed that puck to people on top of scoring. You're putting him with a variety of different people who he could be put with, Michael Rasmussen, JT Compher, Andrew Kopp, all these types of guys who could really help him. And it's going to be really fun to watch. Does he score 40 goals? Maybe.
It's hard to do in general. It
is it's not an easy thing. Like, he scores 40 goals to nothing. Like, that's not.
He's not Ovechkin.
Easy. No. Ovechkin, that's just a walk in the park. He's like, 40, I can do that.
Ovechkin expects that to happen. That's
But will he come close? I think so. I think he'll be at least 30 goals this year. I'm going to stamp it right now. I think he scores at least 30. And he's just going to be great to watch with this system, with Lalonde's system. And, Yzerman brought him here for a reason. Yzerman hasn't really made any big splashes since taking over, and this, in my opinion, is his first big one. We'll see how it plays out.
Can you imagine how good you have to be for 27 goals to be a down year for you?
That's an excellent point, right? That's so many people's dream peak. That was their record, 27 goals.
If you ask anybody around the NHL, a 27 goal season, that's great, unless you are literally expected to be first line caliber guy leading a franchise. That's absurd that people are like, he had a down year, only 27
Now,
goals.
now
again-
if Connor McDavid scored 27 goals, I'd be like, is he okay?
But to be fair, he's also making $12.5 million.
And he's also the only, he's driving Edmonton. But again, to your point, Jordan, everyone had a down year in Ottawa. Like, a lot of us had Ottawa making the playoffs, and they almost did at some points in the year. There was a lot of, we thought they were going to thrive with Claude Giroux and like Tim Stützle, and the combinations that they had should have worked. And whatever it was, things just didn't gel the way I think a lot of us anticipated it going. And I think that could go a long way for DeBrincat. When your team is down in general, it's hard to be producing if nobody can get you the puck.
Well, yeah. The team's only as good as its weakest link, so to speak. Like, you can have great players, but if you don't have a full, complete team that is all firing all cylinders, it's not going to be optimized. And I think that's what happened with Ottawa.
They could shut down. They knew who to focus on. They knew who to shut down because they knew who wasn't a threat.
Yeah, and that was kind of the thing that happened. I mean, it's interesting. Again, people are like 27 goals is an awful year for a player who's in his mid to late 20s.
It's hard though, because when you make your reputation and so much has gone into the contracts with all that jazz with DeBrincat, when that your bread and butter is scoring goals and that is your number one focus, it would be like Ovechkin having, Ovechkin only got 30 goals this year. It's laughable to say out loud, but like, that is the man's sole focus. And so I can understand why there were people that were like, listen, DeBrincat's still good, but like, is he really like that all-star goal scorer that we thought he was, up there with like, not McDavid, Matthews, Ovechkin, like that group? Is he that caliber sniper? Or is he just pretty good? Like that, I get the mindset, but again, I think in Detroit, where he's going to be surrounded by a lot of complementary pieces that could work with his game, people that are already gelling together over the last couple years, I think this is going to be a more conducive environment for him.
Yeah, and I'm hoping so too. Like, I think, like, obviously, David, you're excited to watch Alex DeBrincat this year.
Yep.
I'm really excited to see what Jake Wallman does this year.
Excellent choice.
I've seen a lot of people online saying that he was riding Moritz Seider's coattails in terms of like his production defensive metrics. I disagree. I think the eye test showed otherwise. And I think at some point they're probably going to get split up, not out of like they want to, but out of necessity. And I'm really curious to see how Jake Wallman fares when he's off of Mo Seider's pairing. I want to see if he hangs on his own and shows everybody, no, I was legit, or if it's more of a, okay, the trends go down a little bit, kind of like how Moritz Seider's did when he was paired with Ben Sherratt.
Yeah,
I want to see how that works.
Just don't put Wallman with Sherratt then.
I was just thinking, like, you know what? That's not going to be fair. And I like, to your point on that, Jordan, with like, let's see what happens on his own. Sometimes there's players that have a particular skill set that really thrive and like with a certain style of player. Like if we had another, even if it's not Moritz Seider caliber, but a similar style to Moritz Seider, I think that Wallman will still be absolutely fine. I'm curious to see him identify, not him identify, but for us to be able to identify more what is the Wallman style of defense and how will he complement. Like we know, like, Ghost of Spear's an offensive defenseman, so we got to pair him with like an Oli Mata or something to really anchor that. Wallman, I'm curious about in that front. I'm really curious about whether he's someone that is now picking up those defensive liabilities of somebody else, or is he someone that has to be protected?
I really think that's going to be an interesting thing that we see this year, because at some point I do think they're going to break up Seider and Wallman again, not because they want to, but just you kind of have to.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, they're going to be off the ice together, right?
But that's what I'm really curious about, Sammy. Tim, who are you interested in watching for the Wings this year?
This is going to be an interesting one. I don't know. I'm super curious to get your thoughts on this. I'm really excited to watch Dylan Larkin this year.
Okay.
Ooh, the captain.
The captain, yes. I think he's got a whole other level that he can still achieve that he hasn't unlocked yet because of the caliber of player that he's played with. I think we've seen it a little bit when he played with Lucas Raymond a little bit, but again, Lucas Raymond was also younger, a rookie going through the sophomore slump, all that jazz. So he had to assume more defensive responsibilities. I think being able to play with DeBrincat, we talk about how excited we are for DeBrincat to thrive in this environment. This is the most talented player. Again, you might think I'm off base with this, but in this era of Red Wings hockey, this is the most talented player that Dylan Larkin has played with.
Yeah.
I would agree 100%.
Yeah. And I am hyped because, again, not only is this a guy that Dylan Larkin can get the puck to score, it will also have attention on DeBrincat, freeing Dylan Larkin up a little bit more to score, to find those areas. If they pair with David Perron or Michael Rasmussen that some of us have talked about, that can make that space for him, win some of those it takes some of the defensive responsibilities and the heavier responsibilities off of him a little bit. It might allow him to be a little more freewheeling, which we haven't really gotten to see as much in his tenure with the Red Wings.
You bring this up, and it makes me think back to the All-Star weekend, the 3v3 tourney they did.
Yeah, for sure.
You had Larkin playing with superstars.
Yeah.
And he was always standing out when I watched. Like, I was watching for him, but he had a hat trick in one match.
Oh, he was an animal. It was almost a joke.
He was all over it. And I'm like, you don't see this from Larkin with our Wings, because not saying our team was bad, but they didn't have these all-star caliber players like we're now getting with a DeBrincat with him.
He's had so many responsibilities other than scoring, to be aware and responsible for everyone else on the ice, to be on the ice with other people of his caliber, or even in some areas more caliber. And it just frees him up to play looser, to play more fun. That's where I think we have that other level of Dylan Larkin that we haven't gotten to see yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I was like, I know that he's like one of the most tenured Red Wings, but like there's another level.
He hasn't hit his peak.
And I don't think he's hit his peak. I don't think that he's there yet, which is exciting.
It's going to be interesting to see, like you said, how he handles it when somebody else is kind of taking some of that pressure off of him, like DeBrincat will. I think the thing that's also really exciting for Larkin is he's truly got a guy who can finish the chances that he sets up. And
yes,
it's not a knock on David Perron or Lucas Raymond, but Lucas Raymond is so young and he doesn't have the NHL experience that a guy like Alex DeBrincat has. And again, no shade to David Perron either.
No, exactly.
But David Perron he's getting up there. He is getting older.
I love Perron's game. Like, we've talked about this on the podcast a lot. I really, really like Perron. But if you can have a second line that involves Perron, Raymond, and whether it's Comfort, whoever you put at the center, putting those two, that goal scorer in Raymond and that big body that can also score but can also play defense, in Perron, you've got a real top six now. You've never had that. And that in itself frees up Larkin, because now other teams have to defend at least two lines. Haven't had to do that before.
They literally have not had to do that.
No,
yet.
it's a joke.
So there's one other thing I want to talk about, and it's kind of about like the division fallout that I think we're going to see this year. At some point, somebody's going to miss the playoffs, and I want to talk about that in just a second. But before we talk about that, we've got to talk about our other sponsor for tonight, and that is Raycon.
Oh, I love that.
If you've never heard of Raycon, they're an earbud company. They make great earphones. So, like, let's say, you like going to the gym and working out. They've got they have ones that will like stay in your ears. They've got all sorts of like different colors and stuff like that. They're great headphones. I love Raycons when I'm not, when I'm not trying to have like muffles over my ears like I am now. Raycons are really a go-to for mine. And if you haven't tried out Raycons, I really recommend checking them out. A little bit about the brand. Obviously, I mean, they've been around for a minute. Right now, I gotta tell you, they're probably the best way to listen to music if you like the hands-free experience. They have an earbud that has tap functions to toggle between 3 customizable sound profiles. They've got noise isolation. They have an awareness mode. They've got 32-hour battery life, which includes like 8 hours of playtime. So you can basically listen to whatever you want, when you want, for a pretty long time. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't work out 8 hours in the gym. So they're going to last your whole gym session. They come with custom gel tips, so obviously they're comfortable. And the thing is, they start at half the price of other premium audio brands. So they're really good. Like I said, they're right there with other premium audio brands. They're half the price, and they sound just as good. And they also come with like a 30-day happiness guarantee, so you really can't lose on them. If you want to create your own soundtrack, while you're listening to stuff, you can do it with Raycon. Right now, Hockey Podcast Network listeners, you can get 15% off of your Raycon order at buyraycon.com/THPN. Again, that's buyraycon.com/THPN to save 15% off your Raycons. Buy your Raycons at buyraycon.com/THPN. So the last thing I kind of want to talk about, and we're going to talk about this just for a second, the division fallout. And every year, I mean, I know we haven't seen the preseason yet, but the off season and a lot of the moves are done. We have a pretty good idea of what every team's roster is going to look like going.
We said
into the
that
fall.
like 2 weeks ago, and then the Petry trade happened. I do just want to throw that out there.
To be fair, but that and the Eric Carlson one also happened.
Exactly.
Yes.
So see, again, best laid plans and all that. We can predict all day, but
Everybody's got a plan if they get punched in the nose.
But we are only about, a month away from preseason at this point?
yeah,
Yep.
about
October.
September. Yeah.
So
October season start.
With that being said, I mean, with the divisions set up the way they are, and with the roster that we've seen for most of the teams in our divisions, guys, who are you thinking, at least in your division respectively, is going to take a massive step back that a lot of people don't see coming? Because I've got mine.
Boston.
Well,
I'm going
can't.
Boston.
The Hawks can't take a step back because they were at the end.
Yes. I'm going to go with Boston. Our division's stacked. Like, Toronto is a very strong team, especially the acquisition of Bertuzzi. Will they make it past the first round again? Who knows? Florida is good. Like, I'm not going to do that. Matt Tkachuk is great. They've got a stable team. Tampa somehow keeps hanging on.
But they've gotten
They're
weaker.
chipping away.
They have. But in my opinion, not as weak as Boston's gotten. And here's why I'm saying Boston. They lost hearts of their team. Like, think to when Lidstrom retired. Think to when Zetterberg retired. Think to when Datsuk left. Those were like the hearts of the Wings, and wheels came off after that. Now, their net minding was amazing last year. They had 2 Vezina caliber net minders. Can they put those same numbers up again next year? I don't know.
I mean, they just
goaltending
goaltending
is such a fickle thing where you have a goaltender who had a really great year, Alex Nedeljkovic, when he was with Carolina, to then falling apart when he played for the Wings. You have guys who, like Bobrovsky, who, granted, had an amazing year last year, but was phenomenal for Columbus and then got paid by Florida and then just struggled for a bit. Boston, I think, is a club that's about to take a step back. They might still make the playoffs, but in my opinion, if I was to make a bold statement, I think they missed the playoffs.
I mean, they lost their top 2 centers. Their number 1 center now is Pavel Zacha. Like, that's a huge, no disrespect to Pavel Zacha at all, but to lose Bergeron, who's one of the best that's ever played the position, and David Krejci, who has been like the stable pillar of the second line center, like, for years, and they were noticeably worse the year that he went overseas a couple years ago, they've got no succession plan for that. Like there's no recovering from losing. Charlie McAvoy can't do it. I know they've got some good defense outside of McAvoy, but like you've got McAvoy, you've got Marchand, you've got Pasternak, but you've got no center depth at all.
They lost Bertuzzi.
Yeah, he's in Toronto.
Taylor Hall's gone. Dmitry Orlov's gone.
Yeah, like there is no area that this team improved, and in the areas where they took a step back, the steps back were massive.
The other thing for me that's really, and like I actually agree, David. I think it's Boston. I know a lot of people are like, well, they still have Pasternak and Marchand and McAvoy and their goaltending. I'm like, all right, cool.
What else?
But losing your top 6 centers who really facilitate the transition game into your defensive zone, that's not going to go unnoticed, particularly on your goaltenders when it comes time to actually defend a rush back your way and you don't have Patrice Bergeron closing gaps.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
And your best center, and like you said, Tim, no shade to Pavel Zacha, but he's not a top 6 center.
And he's not.
I hope Zacha's not watching this right now.
I know, our number one fan, but
your centers, they don't just generate points; they also help facilitate rushes back the other way. And when you lose 2 top 6 centers
and a perennial Selke candidate every year that we've been alive, basically.
And you also lost Taylor Hall, a great top 6 winger. And you also bunted on all of your first-round draft picks for the next, 2 years, I think?
They were going hard for the Stanley Cup last year. Like, I feel really bad for them, but also I don't because I hate Boston. And I'm a Wings fan, and I want us to win, and I want them to lose. But, like, they went for it last year. Like, they sold their ship to try to win the ship, and
the ship sank.
They sank in the first round of the playoffs with a 3-1 lead. So, like, who knows? Maybe Pavel Zacha will be great for them. Let's give him some positive vibes.
Listen, I would love for Pavel Zacha to be an all-star next year, and like apparently he thrives with Brad Marchand. Like it's a possibility, but there's no one that can replace what Patrice Bergeron did for that team. And there's definitely no one that can replace the whole of Bergeron and Krejci at once.
Yeah. Like
it's a Bergeron scenario.
Bergeron and Datsuk remind me a lot of each other with like their defensive abilities, which is why they were both perennial Selke finalists. And I know Jordan can attest to this, but when Datsuk left, like, we saw that immense drop off.
It didn't go unnoticed.
And you still had Zetterberg for like a year or two after Datsuk,
he was still hurt. He was
sort of a shell of his career.
It would be like losing Datsuk and Zetterberg at the same time.
God.
But that's exactly what it is, right?
David, I love that my hatred for Boston has started to wear off on you.
That's so funny.
It's been years. It's mostly because of the Patriots and just Boston fans in general thinking like, they're amazing and everything's great, but you watch their championship parades and they start beating each other up in the streets during their parades. I'm like, that's not celebrating. So
just how they say hello. It's fine. You don't speak Boston.
Tim, who do you expect to take a big step back in your guys' division?
The Central's so weird, because there's pockets where I don't think it's St. Louis. I think St. Louis is I hate St. Louis, but I don't see them going back. I see their prospects are developing. Like they're going to be a pain in the ass to play. It could be Nashville with the pieces they've moved out, but their defense is still there. Juicy Saros is still I think they'll still hang around.
And they have Barry Trotz as their GM, right?
Yeah, and I think that they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be middling, which is where they are. Honestly, for a team to take the step back, I think it has to be Winnipeg. I think with Wheeler gone, with Pierre-Luc Dubois gone, Hellebuck I think is going to be traded either before the season starts or early, and that's been the talk of every rumor mill with Winnipeg. I think Scheifele's days are numbered, to be entirely honest. Like, I think they're going to start to strip this down, and it's just going to be Kyle Connor and like Nikolai Ehlers and a new crop of people coming in. But that is a team that the culture has seemed so weird the last couple years. And even before that, honestly, but like, it's a team that's always been just good enough, but always underperforms when they need to.
Yep.
And I think they're really unraveling.
And that's what really sucks, because like the people of Winnipeg are just such diehard,
Devout
loving
hockey
supporters.
fans. Yeah.
And for this team to really be letting them down with their backroom culture and
It's
the issues
a
they have,
weird energy.
it
I don't
sucks.
like it. I didn't like those the exit interviews at the end of this last season. Really negative energy, and I don't see that from any other Central Division team. I think that in itself, the players are talented, but again, they lost Wheeler. They lost a lot of the, for better or worse, heart and soul of their team, I guess. Even if we think it's a bad soul, yeah. So take that what you will. I don't know. I don't see them improving. And as the Central Division continues to develop, they are not there. Even if they don't take a step back, everyone else is taking a step forward. And by default, they are rolling backwards.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what happens this season, because this off season was just I feel like we say this all the time, but this off season, so much happened that is going to upset the hierarchy in the
this
NHL.
One, we say it but like this one really was a unique off season in the amount of teams that have been blowing it up, the amount of teams that are like picking up new different pieces. You've got the Wings that he totally revamped and like has been building upon. Like, this has been a dramatic off season.
I think for me, this is the most excited I've been for a Wings season since the 2009 season, when we after coming off winning the cup, and we signed Hossa. Like, I was like, oh my God, we're going for the back-to-back with Hossa, because we still had like all those depth core pieces. Like, I was starting to get excited when there was the rumors of getting the Parise and Ryan Suter.
Yeah.
And then when that fell off, that was like me being like, oh God, people don't want to play here. What's going on? Like, and then we just started to slowly dwindle. And then like Lindstrom retired, and I was like, well, what's there to be excited about anymore? The perfect human's gone.
Speaking of Lindstrom and Hossa, though, Lindstrom played in Hossa's farewell game,
and he looked good.
He looked great. Like, I tried to see as many clips of that as I could, just the game in general.
Satan played.
Yeah, I saw that. Big get.
I was looking at pictures, and there was like the lineup picture, and there was just Satan. I'm like, oh, someone's like, what team did he play for in the regular season? What do you think? The Devils.
Stupid. That's a stupid joke, and I love it. Yeah, a couple Red Wings, a lot of Hawks, like Zdeno Chara, like what a who's who for that final send-off game.
It's fun.
But I think that's everything that I have for our show for tonight. We've touched on the prospects / players that we're looking forward to playing this year, and also somebody for the Research Club. We've talked on potential fallout for the standings this year, just with the offseason going on. At this point, it's kind of just a waiting game for the preseason to start. I mean, like I said, we're about a month away, so we're going to really start seeing all of these prospects in action within the next month or so.
Excited.
Yep.
When that
Speaking of seeing prospects in action, coming soon, fans, we're going to have our Prospects to Watch show, where we're all picking 3 prospects to watch this year, and maybe you'll pick some to watch with us.
That's what they call a teaser. I'm teasing you right now.
Little teaser.
Yeah, keep your eyes out for that show. We're going to be having that probably within the next few weeks or so before preseason, kind of like a primer, if you will. So that way, when you're watching these preseason games, you're not just watching them that way. It's, the game's are on, I might watch it. You're actually watching players who you need to be looking at and saying, okay, in 2 or 3 years, this guy might legitimately be on this NHL club. I want to see, what they look like now. That way, in that 2 or 3 years when they do make an NHL club, you have an idea what to expect from that player. So be on the lookout for that episode. We're going to be dropping that within the next few weeks or so. In the meantime, though, that's going to be it for our show. If you liked what you saw from this, feel free to check us out all over the social media spheres. We're all over the internet. Give us a like, follow, share, whatever the currency is on the platform you found us. It really helps the show grow. Check out the Hockey Podcast Network as well if you want other teams to follow, get information on. They cover all sorts of clubs on that network. So whoever you like, there's probably a podcast on there for information on them. Check them out as well. And in the meantime, we will catch you guys back all here on the next edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. You guys stay safe, take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you back all here later. Take it easy.